Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Claim Game. I'm your host, Jeremy Zug. And if you are a private practice owner, you already understand a particular conflict that exists. There is the work that you do, the clinical work, whether that be internal or external or whatever specialty or modality you're in. There's the delicate work of healing people. And then there's this external reality of the business you are forced to maintain, right? And the conflict is that these two realities, they speak particularly different languages, they use different logic, and they have very different definitions of success. In this season of The Claim Game, we're using the metaphor of a board game to map your revenue cycle management, your insurance billing, or RCM, one quote-unquote territory at a time. The goal with this season is pretty simple, and it's to help you understand the rules of revenue cycle management so that you can master each domain, claim victory, and then move back to the clinical work that you're really passionate about. The last time we were here, we were looking at aging follow-up KPIs. And so we examined the KPIs that tell you if your follow-up is actually effective or if you're just spinning your wheels chasing ghosts. Today, we are going upstream. We're going to the point of inception. Today, we're going to take a look at the territory of claim submission. And this is actually where revenue cycle management, in our eyes, ends. But for the insurance company, it's where the game begins. And so there's an interesting dichotomy there. This is the last stop on your internal billing process before you send your hard work into the system, and it is the single moment where a 2-centimeter error in clinical translation or administrative process can spiral into a $2,000 problem 90 days down the line. So quick reminder, if you're new to the claim game and you want to get a bird's eye view of how all 6 domains of billing really work together, check out episode 1 for the complete overview. And for the rest of you that have been following along, we're going to get started with claim submission. So I want to introduce today's category, today's domain, as claim submission. And you might be tempted to view claim submission as a simple action, a keystroke, a click of a button in your EHR, a signal from your practice to the clearinghouse. But I want to challenge that thinking. We hear this sentence a lot. I can do billing. I can click the button and send the claims off. But that's a rudimentary view of what claim submission means and what it should be. Clinical logic would say, I did all the work, I went to school, I treated the patient, they got better, symptom reduction occurred, I deserve to get paid. Insurance billing logic says the rules of the game exist to catch your error if you make one, and then you forfeit payment. So claim submission is not an action, right? It is a billing domain that requires a specific discipline of translation. It's where your clinical notes, your modifiers, and diagnostic codes are translated into the highly rigid, bureaucratic data points that insurance carriers understand. If your translation is off by a single number or letter, you're going to run into issues. And in private practice, every time this happens, it could be weeks of delayed cash flow or even denied cash flow. So we're going to look today at 4 critical tools to zoom in on this territory, and we're going to understand its unique challenges and identify how you can move around and navigate claim submission so that you don't get delayed cash flow. So, the first best practice is to understand the language of modifiers and codes and numbers, right? And so we need a map, and we're going to walk through these essential strategic moves that you have to execute. And the very first step on the map is understanding modifiers. And if you view modifiers as optional adverbs in the billing story, you may be behind a little bit. Modifiers are vital context for the insurance company. And keep in mind that the sole purpose of a claim form, whether you're an institution or whether you're a professional provider, it doesn't matter. Those modifiers provide the insurance company, and the claim form provides insurance company the answers to whether you should be paid or not. There's no other purpose than a claim form than just to get paid. Without codes, whether that's modifiers, diagnoses, or procedure codes, the claim is dead on arrival. So what I want to do is compare what you may assume is logical from a clinical perspective and compare that to what's logical from a billing perspective. So, for example, clinical logic understands telehealth versus an in-office session intuitively. Insurance billing logic demands that you prove it using a code. The modifiers you use, you need to understand, aren't standardized. They'll be dictated by a massive matrix of context, your industry, your license type, the geographic location of your practice, the specific rules of the insurance carrier you're partnering with. They're not universal. So while the codes may have universal meanings, where you apply them is not universal. For example, going back to telehealth, if you're trying to guess between GT and 95, or if you're unsure when a location-specific code is even required, you may be behind already. And we have a tool for this called the Modifier Usage Guide. You can get that in the Hourglass. And basically, we designed this to act as a dynamic resource. As you bill, you record additional modifier or carrier-specific nuances, building your own updated reference for the specific code patterns that dictate your practice's profitability. This tool turns billing ambiguity into clinical data certainty. And I'll throw an additional note in here for you. The more insurance companies you partner with, the more rules and references you'll need when determining when a particular modifier or code is to be used. So this is one of the reasons why we preach a lot about making sure that the insurance companies you are credentialed with are the ones that you believe are the right partners for your practice. Because the more you add, the more complicated this gets. The more complicated this gets, the more administrative work you have, which means you're going to incur more cost the more you add. And so be very, very clear about who you work with. And this is one of the reasons why. All right, moving on. Verify and prepare your claims. So once you understand the billing language, you have to execute that logic in a specific way. The second move, other than modifiers and codes and such, is to prepare and submit claims. And going back to comparing clinical logic versus billing logic, this is where clinical logic may fall short again. And the biggest threat to your practice's sustainability isn't bureaucratic process. It's a systematic lack of pre-submission discipline. For example, if you submit 100 claims for a new payer without testing, and those 100 claims have a single modifier error, you haven't made a mistake. You've actually engineered a cash flow crisis that's going to arrive in 30 to 60 days. So the tool that we use to enforce accuracy is the Claim Information Review Guide. Again, you can find that on the Hourglass on our website, and the link is below. It's sort of like a pre-flight checklist, if you will. Pilots don't just get in the cockpit and fly the plane. There's like a whole list of things they have to do to make sure that the plane gets in the air. And Practice Solutions treats your claims with the same degree of care and caution that a pilot would treat flying a plane full of passengers, right? Because we know that the billing function in your organization is the revenue engine for your practice and for you personally. So it requires a huge amount of care and discipline and detail orientedness. But the guide that we have there provides the structure to verify every data point, from patient demographic information, E&B checks, provider credentialing, and specific codes and modifiers before you submit. So we use this guide systemically, especially when you're dealing with any new factor, right? A new patient, a new provider, a new insurance partner. And here's the winning move in this domain. We want to test for rejections or issues using a single claim before sending a large batch. Why would we risk an entire week's billing on a hypothesis? We want to submit one claim, verify it pays, and then scale. I'll give you a good example of this. So we had a client come in that added a provider and wanted her to practice at 2 locations out of the 4 that they had. She was only credentialed with the one location, but decided to jump the gun and see clients at the other location. And so when they were submitting 20, 60, 80 claims a month for this provider, at the second location, we started seeing a huge amount of rejections and denials. Now, we had caught this issue before the claims went out because we used our pre-flight checklist. But regardless, we ended up with a 3-year claim process because those clients needed to be seen. And there's no doubt about that. We didn't rush it, but the provider wanted to get started, and we advised, let's wait until the credentialing is finalized. Let's test a claim. But sometimes those things can get rushed. And so claims went out the door, and we had to come back in over a period of 3 years to clean that up. And eventually the provider got paid because of a dogged follow-up process. It highlights a good example that you want to wait and see with 1 or 2 claims where the graves are so that you don't fall into one. All right, so that's the pre-flight checklist. This episode is brought to you by Jane, a practice management software and EMR built to support you in the day-to-day work of running your practice. If you're a health or wellness practitioner, you already know the care you provide starts well before your client arrives and extends far beyond the treatment room. Jane is there to support you in every part of that experience. With online booking, your clients can book at a time that works for them. And with features like notifications, they'll even be able to grab last-minute openings when they pop up. It's an easy way to keep your schedule full while getting your clients the care they need. During your appointment, Jane's AI-powered documentation feature can help you thoughtfully take notes so you can stay present with the person in front of you. And after appointments, you can end your time together on a healing note, not a transactional one, by charging the card on file. To learn more about how Jane can support you and your clients, head to jane.app/demo. And one last thing, if you're ready to get started with Jane, you can use my code in the show notes for a 1-month grace period on your new account. Next would be record and reroute. So this is, let's say you submit your test claim and you find a rejection or a denial. No matter how disciplined your review is, rejections will happen. And this is move 3, right? We want to understand and record rejections. Billing logic assumes that some of our moves will fail regardless. It doesn't matter how clean you are. There are things that will happen, whether that's a technology issue, whether that's a payer issue or a practice issue. The difference between winning and losing is what you do with that failure. And rejections and denials, we've said this before and I'll say it again. Rejections and denials are simply data points. They're nothing personal. And so when a claim is rejected, your electronic health record or your clearinghouse gives you a reason code, right? Now, you might be tempted to say this is unfair, but billing logic says this is a diagnostic result. We analyze it and then we adjust. The tool we use for that translation work is our rejection resolution guide. This reference tool is designed to decode those really cryptic rejection reasons. They're not clear or obvious, and clearinghouse data is not designed to give you an action plan, but we provide that for you. We want to change rejections from frustrating no's to logical reroutes. If the reason for a rejection is new or unclear, we don't want to wait and see. We want to engage. We want to contact the insurance company to find out more, contact the electronic health record or the clearinghouse. We want to record that new information so that we don't have to struggle with that particular rejection code ever again. And then we log all the rejections on our claim management spreadsheet so that we have some data to look at, right? We want to manage our follow-up and track denial rates. It really is a critical KPI that we discussed in one of our previous episodes, and we want to maintain control of our billing pipeline. All right, finally, we want to optimize and maintain. That's the last move, and this has to do with rates. So while you're engaged in the preparation and submission of a claim, periodically you have an opportunity to increase rates when necessary. Often we find, and this may or may not be you, I don't know, but clinical logic sometimes avoids this move because it feels uncomfortable. It feels like a little dirty maybe, or maybe you might feel guilty for raising your rates because you're helping people or you're on a mission to do something. But billing logic recognizes that a financially fragile practice can help very few people, especially if that practice goes under. So, as you prepare claims, we want to review our fee schedules. We want to notice if a contracted rate is higher than the rate we're currently billing to the insurance company. If you're doing that, we're leaving money on the table. Let me break that down in terms of a math calculation. Let's say you think your hour for any service, right, is $100, and you contract with the insurance company, you tell them your rate is $100, and they negotiate a rate with you that's $85, and you think that's good. Then you come to find out we have a rate comparison tool on the Hourglass where you can go and look up what insurance companies are paying other practices. Their standard rate is 105. And that only exists because you didn't raise your rate to 115 to negotiate down to 105. We want to make sure that we're capitalizing on the maximum rates that insurance companies are going to pay. Now, that will dictate your private pay rate, which is something we can talk about a little bit later. But for now, we want to maximize the rates from insurance. And there's a tool that we also have to help navigate the communication, the optics to patients, and that's the rate increase notification template. We know that informing patients about rate increases is difficult, it's challenging, but these templates give you a professional, systemic way to clearly communicate increases and an effective date in a professional and timely manner. We don't want rate negotiations to be stressful. Rather, we want to change the conversation from stressful interpersonal moments into simple procedural updates. The other time you'd want to navigate or retool your rates is if you negotiate a bigger rate with an insurance company. There are a couple ways you do that, whether you buy a practice and engage in an arbitrage strategy, or you negotiate just a straight increase with the insurance company. You need to update the rates in your EHR, make sure that you're billing the right rates at claim submission, and tell your clients that have a co-insurance or a deductible that the rates have increased. So that's a good example. Now, I have a couple case studies for you where we highlight some of these best practices in action. There was a 15-person group once. They were in a state of high alarm. Their cash flow had evaporated from one specific commercial payer. And the internal staff was literally in tears. They had hundreds of claims. It was tens of thousands of dollars jeopardized in revenue, and they were all rejected at the point of submission. When we came in to audit their billing to find out what the problem was, and we didn't look at clinical notes. We looked at the translation logic. We used the modifier usage guide. We used all the guides mentioned here in this episode, and we quickly identified that the insurance company had quietly updated their telehealth modifier requirements for location data. And the practice had a setting where the modifiers going out on claims was GT, and the carrier, the insurance company, was looking for 9.5. So what we did was we resubmitted corrected claims with the new modifier, and those claims ended up getting paid. But this would be a good example of testing a few claims or being plugged into the updates that the insurance companies are issuing. On our newsletter recently, and you can sign up for our newsletter on our website, but there was a particular payer, I think it was United Healthcare or Optum in Missouri, updated all of their modifiers at the top of the year. And I know a lot of practices got stuck dealing with a range of denials in Missouri because of that update. And there's another issue nationally, right? There was an issue in Ohio between the credentialing system communicating with the managed care organizations that were responsible for Medicaid. And those two systems weren't talking to each other, resulting in widespread denials because of credentialing data on organizations that had been credentialed with Medicaid for sometimes decades. And so This is a good time to review what is happening from a claim submission perspective and whether or not, in the Ohio case, it was not their fault. These organizations, those of you in Ohio, are dealing with broad strokes denials, and it's not your fault. And so you have to document those and be prepared to appeal every last one of those when that issue is resolved. So it's a good example, a good lesson for why the claim management spreadsheet is vital and why the other tools we've mentioned here are important. So I want to add a last little plug for why this system is not just the click of a button and what you can do about it. I know a lot of you are potentially thinking, Jeremy, this sounds accurate and logical, but it's also deeply, deeply exhausting. And you're right. Billing and dealing with insurance companies and that kind of logic is rigorous, and it's designed, I don't know if it's designed to be wearying, but it certainly is. You're called to do your work. You're trained in clinical work in all manner of disciplines. But the bureaucratic reality of 2026 is that this work, this industry, whatever field you're in, has to be translated into codes and modifiers by translators who understand the logic of the game. And the struggle you feel isn't that you hate business, is that this specific task of translation is administrative thorns and thistles that really distracts you from your clinical focus. And this is part of the reason why we exist. We are your translators. We don't just click a button and submit claims. We provide specialized billing services that act as your revenue cycle management partner. And if you're currently at your desk late at night searching outsourced billing or billing companies for private practice, what you're actually searching for is freedom. We manage the domains of billing. We integrate all of these tools into our workflow, and we handle the forensic analysis of rejections and denials, and we give you the magnifying glass so you can see what we're doing, but we're actually doing the keystrokes of moving the pieces and claiming victory for your practice. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please reach out. Our team is eager, willing, and ready to work with you to help take this off of your plate. Today, we conquered claim submission. We gave you an overview of what this looks like, and we talked about vital best practices and strategic tools that you can use to secure this victory. All 4 of the tools we discussed today, from the modifier usage guide, the claim information review guide, the rejection resolution guide, and the rate increase notification template, are all available in our Learning Hub on our website. If you're ready to claim victory over this complex territory and really ensure that the point of inception is structured for profitability, check out the link in the show notes to the Hourglass. Contact us to get billing off your plate and get paid for the vital work that you do. The next time we are on the claim game, we're going to be digging into and looking at, in a deeper way, modifier usage. Modifier usage is complex, it is intricate, and we are really excited to walk through how to use modifiers and think about them in the best way for your practice so that you can turn your practice, organization, or agency into a mission over margin organization and continue doing what you do best. I'm Jeremy Zug, and we will see you next time on The Claim Game. If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have 2 places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.